Hi, Chelsea. Welcome to the Inner Beauty Code.
Hi, thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. The whole purpose behind the Inner Beauty Code is to inspire women to take a journey within themselves, to find validation, confidence, and to live outside the box and really understand the freedom that comes with self acceptance and getting to a place where you really appreciate who you are and are able to start living and living from those places of self acceptance. So
Amazing.
I think that you are
Hmm.
such a great example of that. And you and I met, I don't even know how long ago, like seven.
A
When did you
long
first move to
time.
Miami?
I moved to Miami on and off since 2017, so it must have been around that time. So yeah, about 6 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was like right before you moved to Miami that I met you. Anyways, but seeing where you were when I first met you to watching your journey over the last 6 years, it's been really amazing, really inspiring. I think you're such an awesome person and you're doing really great things. So I wanted to
Thank
talk
you.
a little bit. You're welcome. I wanted to talk a little bit today about the process of your journey and just your experiences and what brought you to where you are now because you are a model, you own a supplement brand that you just launched. You also
Yeah.
have so the collective ritual is also a program that you offer for women that you and your bestie Haley started.
Yeah, we started that in 2021. It's an online membership community for women to, ultimately what you said for Inner Beauty Code as well, just like tap into their best self, feel like their best selves through diving into whether it be journal workshops, shadow work, inner child, their authenticity. And we also do that through meditation and breath work or workshops and community get-togethers. So that's a really amazing project that we started about 2.5 years ago that kind of just blossom into a bunch of other things. I think it really opened my eyes up to like what I actually wanted to do with my life. And I think that's like the beauty of always trying new things and creating new companies. You just keep learning and learning as you go.
Amazing. So, that being said, let's come back to that, but I want to rewind to the start of your journey because when I first met you, you and Shay, or you came over to
Yeah.
my place in Miami and I did your
Oh my
makeup for a
god.
little photo shoot that the three of us were doing together.
What
And
photo shoot
so
was
you were
that?
modeling. Honestly, I don't know if it was just some pictures that we were just doing like a fun creative collab or if it was for like a specific brand that, we were doing content for. I can't remember
I don't know.
specifically what it was. But you came
No, I don't
over and
remember.
yeah. And then I remember just meeting you and you were like dating a guy at the time. And I remember you telling us about the experience about what a jerk he was. and
Oh
and
yeah,
then
he
we
was
like went
horrible.
out and yeah. But anyways, that's right. When I met you, you were just modeling and now you've literally I don't know what it took you to get to the point to where you are or what prompted this, but that's kind of what I wanted to know. So like how you pivoted or what led you into what you are currently doing. Or let's just get up to the
Yeah.
certified coaching, health coaching.
Yeah, or I mean, so for modeling, I've been modeling now for I think 14 years, being originally from Canada and then coming into the US and just like jumping into a different market. And of course, modeling is the modeling industry and it's all about, you know, being your best self every day, whether it be on the inside or the outside. And I think that's what led me to health coaching because being in such a cutthroat industry, realizing that there's so much more that goes into being healthy than just like how you look and how much you go to the gym and what you eat. And actually, in 2017, around the time that we met, is when I enrolled in IIN, which is the Institute of Integrative Nutrition. And that's out of New York. It's like an online school to become a health coach. And I kind of signed up in a time of uncertainty, of feeling like really lost within myself, to be honest. I knew I wanted to do something else, and I was kind of very bored in Miami. I always loved health and wellness, but I was kind of very bored in Miami, dating hence jerk at the time.
Mhm.
And I was looking for something else. And I came across IAN and I enrolled in the school. And I think that's really where it started. And it just kind of led me down a different path. And I graduated after that program after a year. And then following that, I did their extended education certificates in gut health. I did their one in women's hormones. I then went on to get certified in meditation and breath work. So I'm also a meditation and breathwork teacher. And yeah, and that leads me to the collective ritual. And then I started the collective ritual with Haley, and now my recent endeavor, my supplement company. Yeah.
Amazing. I love all that. And it's been really cool to watch. I haven't seen you in like a few years, probably since like COVID, or maybe during
I
COVID we
know.
had a shoot. But the last time was at the beach in Palm Beach when it was just me, you, and Shay again. And we did the one with the sand all over
Oh yes.
you and we were walking around
Oh my
Palm
God,
Beach.
yes.
Yes. But anyways, I haven't
Yeah.
seen you in a while, and just watching you evolve from that place where you were kind of feeling lost. That's when I met you. I remember having these conversations with you when you were just like, yeah, like I don't really like I like modeling. I just you were looking for something more, something I think more to feed you internally or give you more purpose or give you more fulfillment. And it's amazing to watch that all unfold.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've been modeling for so long. And I think at that point, I was even modeling for, I mean, almost 10 years at that point still. So that was still a significant amount of time. And I think it just became so much of my identity. And I think that's a really tough thing nowadays is that we stick ourselves in these like I think like categories and pigeonholes of identities of like how long we have associated ourselves with a certain career or status, whether it be like a model, like I am a model. And for so long I felt like it was really hard for me to, I guess, shed that identity because I felt so attached to it, and it almost felt like you were saying, like, it almost felt like my form of validation. Like, I needed to continue that because that was my identity, when it did not feel like my authentic self. Like, I knew that there was more that I wanted to do with my life, and it just took switching things up and, I guess, trying something new in order to discover what that was.
And not to discredit or discount, because I think a lot of people feel this way. And we are coming out of a time where it was very cut and dry, black and white. Like you have a career, that's what you stick with, that's your identity, that's it. And then you stay in that for the rest of your life sometimes. And I think now it's even, especially with social media and just the opportunities that people have to be able to expand and move into new things and learn new things without necessarily having to go to school, or like it's easier to learn new skills and to try new things without it being do or fail and then it's over. So it's interesting talking about this too, because it gives people almost like you're like the lighthouse, right? That you're showing people what's possible and being an expansive example for things that are possible for people's life. And I really think that's cool.
Yeah, and I think that, well, one of the things we talk about with the collective ritual as well, like a lot of people are always searching for their purpose. Everyone wants to know what their purpose is. And I think that sharing that light or that expansiveness to other people and showing them that, like, don't be scared to fail, try a million different things. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Nobody cares that much. At the end of the day, you're probably doing 10 times more than the other person because half of the people are too scared to try something new. So if you're already taking that step and just like learning a new course, learning a new skill, or whatever it may be, you're going to be learning in the process whether it works out or not. So you might find something else new about yourself that you didn't know you liked before.
And the stigma of, there's two things in that as well that I heard that you're saying, as well as you have to in order to find your purpose and your passion, you have to try new things. You have to try things. Like it's not just going to drop into your lap and all of a sudden you're going to know. It's like through like a step, taking that first step towards something that is interesting to you or something that is pulling you inside, like that little nudge that you keep feeling like, oh, maybe I should try this. And then people get so attached to self-image. And I'm sure you know, but I'm getting my master's in psychology right now, which is absolute hell. It's so hard. But one of my classes right now is personality and social psychology. And we talk a lot and have been talking, the past few months pretty much about what is identity, like who are we, what makes your personality, what influences you, and all the different ways that these attachments to who you think you are can manifest from so many different influences, whether it's socially, your culture, where you live, and then your parents and your friends, and things that you identify with or claim that this is who I am. It's always changing too. I mean, there's a core, essence of who you are, but then it's like if people just realize like it doesn't matter, because you can change your identity and change what your self-image and self-perception is and who you are. It's okay to change that and evolve into all different kinds of versions of yourself. And I think, again, this is just like Chelcie. That was Chelcie 6 years ago, and this is Chelcie now. A different person. That version of you, almost the memory of her exists, but she doesn't exist anymore. Like the Chelcie now is like the reality of who Chelcie is.
Yeah. Like you were saying, I mean, it takes work. It's not gonna fall into your lap, and becoming a new version of yourself is a lot of work. And it's not just like as simple as a decision. I mean, there's a lot of inner work to be done too. I think I didn't just overnight be like, okay, I'm gonna go from this to this. I started practicing so much mindfulness, whether it be meditation, shadow work, inner child, journaling, getting in touch with like my authentic self and just like quieting all the noise. And I think that's also super powerful in finding your purpose, is like starting a spiritual practice can really help, I guess, clear the noise and help you get a little bit more clear on who it is you want to be.
Yeah, and that will like drown out all the other voices, because I think when you don't have that level of self-awareness and consciousness, the voices of the external voices of everyone else telling you who you should be, or almost like you, because of what you're focusing your attention on outside of yourself, will that voice will be louder than your own voice. And taking the time to quiet, yeah, like you said, quiet everything else and drown everything else, so you can peel back the layers and uncover who it is that you are, and what
Yeah.
that inner voice is telling you to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it ties into, the higher self, right? And like I don't know if you ever like work on like your higher self and like who she is. And when I started learning about the higher self, that's when I kind of like started like imagining who she was. What did she do? How does she carry herself? What was her love life like? What career did she have? What does she dress like all of the things. And it wasn't an overnight thing for sure, but I actually had a little aha moment yesterday, just like realizing where I am now versus where I was. And, just like a little proud moment, because like you can get yourself there. Like you can change your life if you want to. It just, it takes time, and you just have to set the intention and everything else will fall into place, honestly.
I love that you said that. So maybe in spiritual work, there could be so many different versions of what people say inner child work is. Or, there's a psychological perspective, there's a spiritual, and like so many people have different definitions. So when because this worked, for you to almost it sounds like a visualization, or almost like who you want to step into, like the role that you want to step into, the energetic that you want to inhabit, like going forward in the future. Maybe can you just explain a little bit more about that, without, if this is part of your program, I don't want to be,
No, no,
giving your
totally
secrets
fine.
away, but can you just so the listeners have a little bit of an idea of exactly what you mean, in case they have never heard of this before.
Yeah, well, I think it's important to first look at like do like a self-analysis and like see where you're at currently in your life. What do you dislike? What do you like? And then when it talks about inner child and shadow work, I mean, you can go down a rabbit hole of workshops and it can get really, I mean, shadow work and inner child can get really emotional. It can get really dark. It can get really deep, and also open up a lot of things that you didn't know you had. But I think like a great place to start if you were just trying to, whether it be up level your life, step into a new version of yourself, is look at where you are now, do like a little self audit, and then maybe start to pick apart some reoccurring habits that keep coming up in your life that make you feel stuck, whether it be a personality trait or like something that you're doing to self sabotage yourself. Like that's what I found I was doing, whether it be a money mindset. So I tracked back to my inner child and I was like, where did this mindset come from? Where did this lack mentality come from? And it went back to, I have divorced parents and I grew up around a lot of that talk of we don't have enough, like you put that back, or, kind of like order the least expensive thing on the menu, like things like that, that I didn't realize that to this day I was carrying with me and I would still do. And when I started diving into that and just started journaling about it, I think that's the most powerful. Just write it down. As soon as you get it out on paper, you can kind of see it, realize either how silly it is or how much you have to work through. And then once you kind of just start journaling on that, you can start putting into play who it is you want to be and how is her money mindset? How is her self image? And how does she portray herself? And I think, of course, it's not an overnight success because I still have a lot of patterns that come up for me around whether it be insecurity or shadows and personality traits that I feel like I've tried to suppress over the years. But I do think that journaling is the number one most helpful thing when it comes to stepping into your higher self, your future self, and the version of you that you ultimately want to manifest.
I could not agree more with everything that you're saying. And something I wanted to come back to that you just said is the different levels. So, even let me just tell you about something about me. So, I'm also from divorced parents, right? So, there's a lot that comes with that. And everyone's experience is different. Mine was not the best either. Like my parents fought my whole life and the same thing, like very different
Mhm.
economically upbringings between the two families with my parents. And so there was a lot of work that I had to do around abundance mindset too, just in general in life. And
Mhm.
then that comes down to your beliefs about yourself, about love, like your own worth, like what you're worthy of receiving and having in life. And when you said that you go deeper and deeper with each topic, like, oh, okay, so money around this, and it might translate into other areas of your life. There's also different layers to each different pattern, like, or negative self-belief that you have. So you might think, this is my experience, I've thought, oh my gosh, I've worked through this thing, blah 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 blah, and then something else comes up and you're like, well shit, I thought I already dealt with this, like why is this happening again? Or and it's just, you realize that you have to, being gentle with yourself too, and realizing that it's not like, hey, I'm tick tick, money's great, I'm good with money now, abundance check. It's like it will always continue to be unveiling deeper and deeper layers to this, because it will show up in different areas of your life and reflect back to you like, oh, this is still linked back to this. This is something that's showing me this pattern again.
Yeah. And I think that there's this really amazing practice that you can do. And when it comes to seeing recurring themes come up in your life, I actually do this practice with my therapist. It's called parts meditation. I don't know if maybe you would learn about it in psychology. Basically, it's about going back to these parts of you that are making you feel stuck. So for example, I'll share a little bit about mine. Like, I have this version of myself that is like, I still remember it. She pops up all the time and she's the version of me that makes me feel really small. Okay. She's the version of me that is basically if you were to compare it, my lowest self, the version of me that I was at this certain time in my life that I like kind of look back at and I'm like, oh, like I cringe a little bit because I'm like, wow, like that was not who I am today. And it just makes me feel a little like uneasy. And we would go back and like visit her and find out kind of the reasons why she's keeping me current self small. And it's not because, I am still that version of me because it's been years. I've grown, I've done all the work. If I were to look at who I am today, I'm clearly not that person anymore. But she tries to make you feel small because she tries to keep you from getting into that situation again,
Safe.
right? Yeah, she wants to make you feel safe and she's holding on. She's like, "No, don't do it." You like, So instead of burying these parts of us and trying to kill them off and trying to avoid them and like be embarrassed about them, it's more or less like I went back and brought her into where I am now, told her like, no, no, I'm okay. You're safe. Like, you're safe, and it's okay for us to flourish now, right? And also, like, acknowledging that part of you is, like, that is a part of your journey, and that has made you who you are today, because I think just, like, pushing those away and then having them come back up all the time, like you were saying, it doesn't work, and, like, you can't work through those things. So, I think just, like, recognizing them as part of your past, but it not being part of your present story is the difference.
Yeah, and I have 2 therapists, and I've done a lot of, like, the inner child work on that as well, and
Yeah.
it's the parts of yourself that you've self-abandoned, and it creates shame around this version of yourself, and, like, you leave that part of yourself in the past because and it's like fragmented parts of yourself almost, where it's like this little part of me, I didn't want to deal with her at the time and I wanted to pretend she doesn't exist, but that's still part of you. So to like fragment yourself and leave yourself behind, like you said, it's not going to work because you're leaving pieces of yourself behind, and then you go into the future still not being whole. So it's kind of like, well, no, actually I'm still here, I'm still here. Hello, Chelsea or Rachel, I'm still here, look at me. They'll come pop back up and try to get your attention, but it is a part of yourself at that time that you didn't have the either the coping skills or the emotional capacity to process whatever pain you were going through at that time. So it just got stuck almost, and
Yeah. And I think having compassion for yourself is really important, like having compassion for that part of you, because up until, I mean, it took, I think only up until recently have I become more and more accepting of, my path and where I've come from and how far I've come from and who I used to be. And I don't think that version of myself, from a perspective of thinking, "Oh, that version of myself is so shameful," but at the same time, like, no, like, we were learning, we didn't know what we were doing, now we do, and that's okay because we're all just trying to figure it out, and sometimes we're gonna take a little longer than other people, maybe some people figure it out faster, but that's all the beauty of our own personal journeys.
exactly. I love that so much. And like it's so important, and I know from what you're saying that this is true for you too, but just even not that I'm like telling everyone, "Hey guys, go to therapy," but through therapy and just learning about these parts of myself that you don't realize it's almost like you resent parts of yourself, or you are there's so much shame. Like shame is like a number one killer of your growth and your ability to accept yourself, because it's like you're your own worst critic, and you'll criticize and criticize that part of yourself, or just start not wanting to look at it again. And yeah, it's super helpful through therapy to be able to recognize these things, or doing rituals like the collective ritual where you're able to bring awareness to this and just and it is an emotional process. Like you said before, it's not easy. Like cry it out, girl, feel your emotions and let it out and
Mhm.
move forward, because there's only one way to get from where you are to where you want to be, and that's like through the the stuff that's holding you
Through the
back.
shit.
Hmm.
Yeah. I think also if you're gonna do therapy and you are interested, I mean, I'm not a therapist and you're studying psychology,
I'm
but
not a
I think
therapist.
that starting I think that starting with self-work and diving into that stuff yourself so that you become a little bit more aware of these things, and then going into therapy, you can I think you have like a 10 times better success rate because you're already kind of like understanding the patterns and what to look for, and like you're like, "Oh, like okay, this is something I know I need to work on now," because you might have no idea what's blocking you or what's keeping you stuck because you haven't kind of like dove into yourself a little bit. So, I think if you're one of
I
those
love
people that
that.
really want to like expand your self-development, then just sit down with a pen and paper and start writing and you'll be amazed.
And so well said, because it sounds like that's your journey. And it was definitely mine, where I got to a point where I've been doing spiritual practices. I've been meditating. I've been reading all the books on self development, personal growth, spirituality for like 10 years, 11 years. And I had tried to go to a therapist in the past, and I didn't feel like it was help. Like I went to a few sessions and I'm like, I just don't feel like this is doing anything for me. And it wasn't until, everybody's journey is different, and the timing is always, it happens like the teacher appears when the student is ready. And I think up until a few years ago when I started going to therapy and I found a therapist, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm aligned, and I'm so aware that when I came to her, I said, listen, I keep experiencing this pattern in relationships with unavailable men, and I don't want to do this anymore. So can you, help me through this? And then, or I'm experiencing this in life. Can we talk about this? And it's been a successful process for me with that therapist and the therapist I see now, to just be able to actually make the progress or get the most out of my therapy sessions. So I love that you just described it that way. That was perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. And I think that like nobody should be scared of therapy. Like you don't have to have issues to go to therapy. I think it can also be like a really great avenue for you to talk to someone and help develop your passions and the good things in your life. And you never know what could come of it.
Yeah, and it's we were, so again, on my Wednesday class, we were just talking about something that it's like sometimes you don't want to talk to the people, or the people that are closest to you have an emotional investment in you. So it's almost better to talk to somebody who doesn't have that emotional investment in you and is not going to give you their opinions of what they think you should be doing with your life, because sometimes that's not what you need to hear, and that's not the kind of help that you need. So going to like, or taking the collective ritual program is something that's like detached from your core group of people that will have an emotional bias when they're giving you advice, or trying to help you, or looking for what your next step from those people around you.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people could look for answers outside of themselves because that's just what we're so used to. Even like the school curriculum growing up, like everything is like outside of us. Nobody really teaches us how to like dive in and find the answers ourselves. And I think that, when we started the collective ritual, that was kind of the goal because Haley and I, my business partner and best friend, realized that we were just finding so much success in the inner practices. We were feeling like our best self, talking to one another about all of these practices daily. And we were just we were just feeling really, really good. And we're just like, wow, like these need to be available to everybody. Like every girl, everyone needs to know about these kind of practices that you can do on your own and you can find the answers yourself because truly you have everything within you to show up as your best self, find the answers, manifest your dream life, and just start living the way you want to live. It's just, it's an inner practice and it takes getting a little uncomfortable, but over time, I think it can be a really beautiful, beautiful journey.
Yeah, the rewards are, outweigh the downside of the temporary
Right.
emotions that you have to pursue, press through.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you would want to talk about this, but one question I always get from people is, because I talk about this. So going back to, the time when I met you, One thing that
Mhm.
really was impactful for me during like whatever we were talking about at the time was if you're in a place where you're seeking validation outside of yourself, and you'll most likely compare yourself to other people, more than looking for those answers within yourself. You'll start looking outside to compare like what
Mhm.
this person's doing, what that person's doing. And I think through being a makeup artist and working with so many models, there's this perception that because women are beautiful, they are making money being a model, that, you're thin and life must be so easy for you. And like men just really must just throw themselves at you and you must have no problems. And when you had told me about your struggles in your relationship, it was one of those moments that, like, I had heard it before a few times, but that one I remember as well, when you were like, "Oh, this guy's a jerk." When you told me this, I'm just like, "Okay, wow, she's so," again, the image, you would think, "Wow, this girl probably knows how to just, or doesn't have the same problems that I have." And it's women ask me now, "So," because I have said this before, like I had told girls, listen, we're all the same. And part of the reason why I wanted to start this podcast and why I was doing mindset coaching a bit and just really started telling my clients and people I was working with about, again, like you said, inner practices and the work that I was doing on myself. They would be like, well, these girls that are models are so pretty. We want to hear like the stories. And people ask me now on the podcast about your struggles that are relatable to everybody. It's not just because you're a model and you have a more glamorous career than most people that you don't still struggle with things that other people do. So, is there anything in that realm that you would be able to share?
I think that a big thing for me, and I think a big thing for everyone, I think that whatever stage you are at in your life, emotionally, especially emotionally, you are going to attract. When you start showing up as the version of you that you want to be, you're going to attract that equivalent energetic level of another human being. So if you are in a state of your life where you're like really vibrating at a low frequency, you're not feeling your best, maybe you're partying a lot, maybe you are not taking care of yourself the best, you're not going to the gym, you're not practicing journaling and meditation, like you're really outside of yourself, right? You're kind of just floating through life. A lot of the times you're going to meet a man that is also just floating through life because that is your energetic equivalent. So if I
Mhm.
think of the guys that I met at the certain times in my life and the guys that I've dated, it makes sense. Like, it really makes sense because, like, that guy that you're talking about, the jerk, I was not feeling my best. I was not the highest version of myself for sure. And that was my equivalent, this low vibrational jerk that I met. And even before that, and before that, I dated a promoter at one point. I've been there, and it's not my proudest moments, but that is okay because, and so now there's a lot of girlfriends I have that, whether they have problems with guys or problems meeting guys, I always say, like, just show up as the male version you want to attract. Like, if you're gonna be like going out to the club and that's what you love to do, like, that is totally okay. But that's probably gonna be the type of guy you're gonna attract, you know? And
Mhm.
it's just scientific energy, I think. Like, for me, when I was ready for that partner, I am now engaged to my fiance, and it was at a time in my life where I was really trying to just like become this better version of myself, like separating myself from the noise, like the industry, and like getting out of all of that crowd, getting out of LA. And he was there, and yeah, he's amazing. So, and we've really grown together as a couple too, bettering each other over the time. It's been like 4 years or 4.5 years. And I think that like showing up as the opposite version and that you want to attract is really powerful. So I don't know if you've seen that before.
No, I totally agree, and totally agree with like your energetic vibration. You're going to attract what you are, and the vibration that you hold within is going to be the only level that you can attract. You can't attract something up here when you're down here. So I love that you just said it and
Exactly.
put it in that context. That's great. So ladies, if you're wondering why your things aren't working out the way that you want to, start looking within and start self-reflecting, because that's how it's going to change.
Yeah, like if you're avoiding yourself or you're avoiding your own problems, you're probably going to
Mhm.
meet someone that's going to be avoidant,
Mhm.
you know? And it's totally easier said than done, I think. I think it's like, once you're in it and you're in the thick of it and you're love bombed or you're dating a narcissist or something that comes into your life, it can be sticky and it can be a tough situation. And I'm no dating coach, but I think that holds a lot of power.
No, I think that's extremely powerful. And it's interesting. So I told you I'm seeing a therapist right now that we really work on energetics. Like that is our main theme that we talk about a lot. And right now, I'm learning how to have healthier relationships with people in general. Like it's been, a lifelong process creating boundaries with family, creating boundaries with friends, with partners or ex-boyfriends, and through that she is always telling me, like, we in my session this week we talked about embodying the energy of, she relates it to goddesses, and not in a way
Oh,
that,
I love this.
yes, and not in a way that's
I've done that.
Same. Not in a way that, like, a lot of these people, in a more authentic way than what is talked about sometimes, where it's like, just think of Kali, or I don't know who else, Aphrodite. And if you want to attract more love, and it's like you embody what that goddess is, and you can project whatever it is that you want to be onto that goddess, and almost like, take a deep breath and really feel into the energy of that that goddess, or that whatever it is that you want to embody, and just start living your life in that place, so that when you're communicating with people, especially, in relationships, or whether it be in your business, you can say the difference of being nagging and you saying, oh, well, I don't want you to do this, or why don't you spend more time with me, or why don't you do this. It's more like you become this energetic that is attracting things to you that want to be there, and it just changes the energy behind the intention. And so when you do that, it's like guys will, or, opportunities will just show up and be more, it's more of an attracting abundant energy than coming from a lack. So that's, anyways, communicating in relationships and learning how to be better about that, and the energy that I'm carrying and bringing forth is like a practice that I'm starting to really start to integrate, because we get distracted with school, and I honestly, to be fair, have not been doing a lot of my spiritual or my own rituals that have been really helpful for me, because I've been so in my head with school, and this degree that I'm pursuing is very scientific. So this conversation has been really helpful, again, to remind me of why I'm feeling a little bit disconnected right now at the moment.
Yeah, and I think the goddess energy is such a cool thing. I actually talked about it before with a therapist as well. He was kind of like a life coach therapist, and he said that because I was in a point of very like self-doubt, like always questioning and always like stuck between a rock and a hard place. Like, what do I do? I don't know what to do. I found myself always faced with these tough decisions when it came to my career. And I would get myself in a lack mentality. Like if I did this decision, these were going to be all the repercussions and blah, blah, blah. But if I did this one, and he just said, listen, you're a goddess, like whether you're Cleopatra or whoever you were saying, do you think she worries about these things? Like, do you think she's like worried about like, oh, like she says no to this, that there's not going to be another one that comes around? No, she's
Mhm.
Cleopatra. She doesn't give a shit. And she doesn't
Yeah.
care. So then getting yourself in that kind of like mind space of just like being like really whole and content in who you are and the decisions you make, like successful people make decisions. That's a huge
Mhm.
thing. Like they're sure about decisions, and just embodying that goddess energy, I think is super, super important. And I try to do that daily, but you know.
How does channeling goddess energy and doing all this internal work and doing these internal practices daily, how has that helped you in your business? Because I know you just started a new supplement company as well. And I would love to hear all about that. I know it focuses on the gut. So let's tell me all about that.
Yeah, so I just launched about a month ago or so, around the end of October, which has been super rewarding. I mean, I've been working on it for about over a year and a half. So finally bringing that to fruition has been amazing. It's called Sera and Mattina, and it in Italian means morning and evening. So, I mean, I'm not Italian, but my fiance is Italian, and I'm very inspired by just the European culture, which promotes this effortlessly healthy way of life over there. And I'm sure if you've been to Italy or you've been to Europe, and you're in Europe now, you just know that the health and wellness culture over there, it's not so strict as it is in America. On every corner in the US, there's a Barry's boot camp. There's a juice shop. It's very like a biohacking center. And I think that in Europe, it just goes back to the basics, the simplicity of like nourishing your body with good food, walking, good company, laughing, having like, just a really fulfilling life with the basics. And that is the emotion that I want Sarah Martina to evoke with everyone and all of my customers and the community. So the AM supplement is called Glow with Your Gut. It's a symbiotic blend for glowing skin and gut health. And then we have a PM, which is for digestion, sleep, and stress levels. So it's really going to help balance those cortisol levels when you wake up in the morning to wake up in a more restful state. When I started creating Sarah Martina, a really important aspect for me was the transparency and the vulnerability that we were going to display within the company with each and every one of our customers and community. I wanted it to be something that I would actually take myself, and I hold myself to extremely high standards when it comes to health and wellness products and what's in them and where they come from, the testing that they've undergone. So that is something that I made sure my product had. And I think that's why it took so long, because I just wanted that quality to be the best that it could possibly be. So we're clinically studied, certified organic, and third party tested. So I'm super proud, and I need to get you some. I think you'd love it.
I am so proud of you, Chelsea, and it sounds amazing,
Thank
right up
you.
my alley. I am always looking for ways to improve my gut because I've always had issues with my gut. So this sounds perfect. I will definitely order some when I come home next week and get it before
I
I leave,
know. I wish we
hopefully.
were shipping to the
Ah,
to
me too.
Europe right now, because we're not, but we will be, I hope, in the near future. But and I think like relating back to when you were saying, all these inner practices. I think you could probably relate with like starting your podcast and business in general, that there's always going to be hurdles that you face and self-limiting beliefs that kind of jump in and make you think, I don't have what it takes, or it's going to be a lot harder than I think. And, I think that is also something to be really proud of when starting a company and getting it off the ground, because you really do have to work through a lot of inner work to get to that point. So
I love that. And what are some of the things that you've had to overcome? Because I find that so interesting and definitely relatable in all areas of my life. I can't tell you how many times I've talked myself out of doing stuff. So just what like I'm very interested too in the process of creating a supplement. Like what were the biggest wins for you in doing this, or how was the process for you in general?
So, creating the supplement itself, the biggest issue for me was that I really wanted it to be like the highest quality possible. And the supplement market is not that clean. Like there's a ton of supplements that we probably take on a daily basis, and ones that I was taking on a daily basis that we take because we think they're trusted, the marketing's good, or an influencer or someone we know is promoting it, right? But then when you get down to actually what's inside of these supplements and what we're taking on a daily basis, for example, a very common binder and filler that they add to a lot of supplements is called microcrystalline cellulose, and it's made out of wood pulp, for example, which is an extreme gut disruptor. We're putting it into all of our probiotics or our supplements that are for gut health, and it just feels very counterintuitive. And then as far as testing goes, they can be loaded with heavy metals, mold, toxins, yeast, all of the above, unless they undergo certain testing in certain facilities. It can be the facility that they're being made, or it can be a third party, which is what I wanted to do, just to make sure that you get the other set of eyes on it, because there's different places with different expertise. So that was definitely the hardest point in creating the supplement itself. I think in the mindset, for me, the hardest part would be As much as I have the schooling and as much as I know what I'm talking about and I've learned it over and over and over again, I just always felt like maybe I'm not smart enough. Maybe I'm not good enough to create something that people are going to ingest on the daily basis, because feels like a pretty crazy concept to be like, here, take this. This is going to help you. So in the first half of like creating it, I was definitely trying to talk myself out of it. Like, the market's saturated, or you need to go back to school, or just all of these things on all of this noise. And, coming back to all the mindfulness practices that we were talking about, I think have really helped. And talking to my therapist and just really going for it, because at the end of the day, we don't have anything to lose. We're doing more than half the other people out there. So
Yeah, just by taking that first step or trying it.
taking the first step.
Yeah, I love that, Chelsea. It's so inspiring. And so, listeners, if anyone out there is talking themselves out of pursuing a dream, you just heard it straight out of Chelsea's mouth, that keep persevering and pushing through your fears, because on the other side of that, you can look back and, realize, oh, it really wasn't that bad. And, you could be proud of yourself and when you, yeah, reflect on all the hurdles that you overcame.
A lot of the time it's just all in your head when you're trying to pursue something. You're going to have that little voice inside of you. And that's just to keep you safe, like we were talking about, right? Because
Mhm.
on the other side of a dream, on the other side of a career you're pursuing is a completely different life, and it just opens up a million other doors. So it can be scary. And I think that's just where the voice comes from.
I love that. And then the intention behind your brand too. I actually was aware of fillers and just things when they're produced in other countries. There's a lot of supplements made in China with like heavy metals and
Yeah.
ingredients that aren't, you cannot possibly regulate what they're putting into these supplements. So I am so excited to try this because, most people have an issue with yeast or mold in their gut too. And the fact that you could be taking a supplement that's making it worse while when you think it's taking it making it better is just really
Not
unnerving. So
helping.
I'm so happy to try yours.
Yeah. I mean, it could be a very confusing market to jump into. I think even taking supplements as a consumer, there's so many out there and there's so many ads and there's so many amazing products that are put on the market daily that say they do this and say they do that. So really the goal of mine when creating Sarah Matina was to just simplify your wellness routine. Simple. We already have so many things to do in our morning routine, in our evening routine. I feel like we're trying to do it all, right? When it comes to wellness and self-care and mindfulness. So making it simple and creating multifunctional supplements that you can trust. You take two in the morning, you take two in the evening, and you're taking care of your gut, your skin, your sleep, and just all around wellness.
Well, perfect. Thank you, Chelsea. And by the way, your
Of
skin
course.
is absolutely
Oh,
beautiful and glowing. I meant to tell you that the other day too. I Every time I see you, you're just like,
oh, thank
your
you.
skin is amazing. So you're doing is
Oh,
really
thank
working.
you.
And so, if is there anything else that you wanted to share before we wrap up?
No, I think we had a really great conversation, and I think it was well rounded, and I think we covered a lot of bases. So, yeah, it was great speaking with you.
So great speaking to you. And then, Chelsea, so if someone wants to find you, where should they look? All your social handles and everything, where to
Yeah,
find you.
so I'm on Instagram at Chelsea May, ChelcieMay. And then if they wanted to check out the supplements, Sarah Matina is spelled SERA and MATTINA, and at sarahmatina.com.
And I like to just ask my guests, what is something that you think is an inner beauty code of yours or a strength that is innate to you that other people might find inspiring if they're looking for that inner inspiration?
An inner beauty code.
I can tell you what that means again if you need me to.
Yes, tell me what it means
Okay.
again.
The whole concept behind inner beauty code is that we all have it links back to comparison and looking for validation outside of yourself, right? Where people can get stuck comparing themselves to other people, which again can prevent them from pursuing their dreams. And I believe that everybody has a uniqueness and a unique code within them of strengths or things that are just come natural to them, or when you people say, when you walk into a room, you light up the room, things like that. Perseverance, self belief, whatever it is that you think has helped shape who you are, over your journey, basically.
Actually, something comes to mind when you say that. So, I think really being true to who you are, and as cheesy as it is, like never dimming your sparkle. So, a lot of the time, I feel like society, friends, or people around you can influence us to act a certain way or be somebody we're not because we think that is what it takes to be successful or do what that person is doing. So, I think a lot of the time we kind of change our persona and try to take on this other person's like persona essentially. And when you were saying that, something that came to me was when I was in high school, there was a group of girls. I remember I was like dancing around the hall. I was like an energetic kid all through elementary school to high school, dancing through the halls, theater, singing, and I was just like super out there. And I remember these girls told me that you have to stop being so like out there. Like what people don't aren't going to hang out with us if you do that. And it stuck with me for so long to basically like just stop being who I was, right? Like sit back and be like a little more calm because that's just not who I was. And I remember that stuck with me for a really, really, really long time until I started doing the work and realizing that that was my strength. That's what made me different. And that was my sparkle. And I think that since I got that back and I didn't feel like I had to like dim that for anyone else to make them feel more comfortable is when I started to shine. So, yeah.
Chelsea, that is beautiful. I completely resonate with that myself, being, similar energy. And I
Yeah.
love that for you. That's amazing. So, guys, don't ever dim your light for anyone else. And it's funny that you said it like that, because I think a lot of women, and even people that I've interviewed, say the same thing. People want to tell you
Hmm.
how to fit into the box instead of letting you shine for who you are. And it's so debilitating. So I'm happy to hear you say that again, Chelsea, and congrats on everything that you've achieved and all the things that are happening in your life. It's great to watch. I love watching that, and I'm so proud of you. And thank you so much for being a guest today.
Thank you so much for having me. I loved this. Loved it so
Perfect.
much.
Good. All right, Chelsea, we'll see you soon.